Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast. This Week in America. Thank you for sharing some time with us on the program today. Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by Renate Schalk Schreiner is the story of Ollie, a young octopus, a curious and smart creature living in the ocean. He's always looking for adventures and meeting new friends. His classmates, the guppies, are usually hanging out with him. The rhyming stories are most entertaining, with a few sprinkles of actual facts woven into them. The splendid illustrations will bring it all to life, and soon Ollie finds his way into everyone's heart. Renate was born in East Prussia, Germany, now Poland. In 1945, her family fled to the West, where she grew up, went to school, and became a kindergarten teacher. She immigrated to the U.S. in 1964. Eventually, she became a Montessori teacher in Wisconsin for 20 years, now residing in California. Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends is her first book. Renate Schalk Schreiner is our guest on This Week in America. Renate, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Well, good morning, Rick Bratton, and it's so good to talk to you.
It is my pleasure to have you on the program, and this is such a charming book. Talk about the inspiration for the book. It's a book that's both entertaining and has a very important message in there as well. What was the inspiration for this?
That's kind of a funny story itself. I belong to a writers group for 10 years now, and we write stories and poems and novels and all kinds of things, but no books. And then a friend of mine has an email, and among that email is the letters O for octopus and Y for yo-yo. And when I heard that, and I was with her, and I said, oh, I can see Ollie, the young octopus, is playing with 8 yo-yos, and he gets tangled up, and he has to call out to his ocean friends to help him. And she said, go home and write a story, because she always reads my stories. So I went home, sat at the computer, and the words just came. And then when I was done with studying in between and looking up animals, which ones to use, and so 21 poems later, I was done. And that was about 3 years ago. But I read it to my friends, and they said, you have to do something with that. But never could because, well, I had a sick husband at home too, and all this. But then when before I turned 80, I said, before I do that, I have to do something with this book. So I got busy and found a publisher, and, well, the rest is history.
And the rest is available online and in bookstores. The book is Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by Renate Schalk Schreiner. The book's available at Amazon, Author House, the usual places. I'll give you all of that information as we go through the program. And, of course, if you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you can link on directly, get information on that. This, I mentioned, is your first book. Mentioned that it came about because of the 80th birthday. Talk about finally deciding to do this so late in life. What was that like? This was sort of like, okay, I'm 80. I'm going to do something pretty exciting now, and this project certainly is.
Well, as I said, my friend encouraged me. The poems were there. I re-edited and edited and rhymed better and had a friend and all of this. But then I thought, well, maybe they're right. I should do something with those. I like the stories. My friends like the stories. Maybe other people will like them too. And so that's what I did. And I just took the plunge and looked for a publisher. And I was very pleased with the way they talked to me. And we spent hours on the computer. I'm on mine, and they're on theirs, and back and forth. And they produced what I think is a wonderful book. And the pictures in there, the illustrations, are done by my cousin in Germany, Udo Raumschüssel. Now, I know that's a mouthful to say, but
yes.
Udo will do.
Well, he is so talented. Talk about that, because it's a family affair. What was that like, getting family involved in this project of yours?
Well, when I was in Germany last year for my very last time because I'm almost blind and I can't travel by myself anymore. And so I saw him, hadn't seen him in, I don't know, maybe 50 years. And when I came back, I thought, well, Udo was a graphic designer all his life. I wonder if he would be interested in helping me. So I called him up, and he said, you know what, you are fulfilling a life dream for me. And I said, well, okay, let's go then. So he doesn't speak English, so I had to translate all the stories for him and suggest the pictures. And from then on, he made had suggestions for this and for that, and we had a few changes, and I always loved what he did, and some of the things he had to do were really, as you said, a doozy, because he had never done anything like that before. But I am very pleased with what he did.
It makes the words and the book come alive. The book we're talking about is Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by Renate Schalk Schreiner, our guest on the program. Let's talk a little bit about the stories that you have in the book. How did you go about developing the stories for the book?
Well, as I said, I had all the poems written, but I noticed that maybe they didn't rhyme quite as much as I would like to have. So that's what a friend of mine, we sat together for many hours and changed things. And once I had the first story where Ollie was playing with the yo-yos because it was birthday and somebody gave him a present, a basket full of toys, and one of them was the yo-yos. Of course, he is so curious and he has to find out how everything works. The next story then, he's still curious, but joyful little octopus. He swims along, gets run over by a school of fish, finds out what school is about, finds out from them that they think school is so cool. And he said, I have to go find out what that is. They invite him. He loves the teacher and finds out, yeah, school is cool. And from then on, they go about their adventures, meeting many, many different friends, and find out what they are like and what they're about and how they move and what they like to do and where they live and things like that, and find out about himself, like he has ink in his body. Then they meet the hungry shark, and it comes out to his surprise, and they are all saved and swim away.
It's interesting. You mentioned before in doing the background, doing the research. Talk about that, because it's an entertaining story, but I'm sure that the teacher instincts come in. You better research this. If you're going to teach somebody something, you want to make sure that it's correct. What was it like researching, going back and making sure when you said something happened in the book that actually is plausible?
Well, yeah, I did go and Google many different animals, and I looked at the videos that they had online and tried to find, for some of them, tried to find names for them. And sometimes I went, maybe not in these stories, but there are more stories that I didn't put in the book. I tried to find a name that came from the Latin and something like that, and then find out the facts, like, for instance, that starfish have 2 feet they walk with. Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I knew not the animal, but not that. And then I wanted them to know the fact that, for instance, turtles lay eggs on land, and that for instance, the bottlenose dolphin that's in there has to spout out the water so it won't drown. And it has live babies, and so those are the facts that I looked up, and as I said, put little sprinkles of facts into them that are interesting, were interesting to me, of course, but are also interesting to the little minds, which are like sponges at that age and soak everything up and remember it well.
You know, that's interesting because I mentioned a kindergarten teacher. You worked with these young minds for years. How much of that background was beneficial in writing the book, Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends? The fact that you know what children at this age, what they respond to, what it is they like to see, because you've really delivered. How important has that background been in writing the book?
I think it was very important because, as I said, in Germany I worked in kindergartens, and then here in the States I worked with children from 2.5 to 6 years of age, and I was able to read and study many books with them, and I know what they liked, and you know, animals usually were the front runners, and all kinds of animals, but most of the time it was the animals above ground, above water. And in this case, when this came along, I thought, well, this would be a good opportunity to educate the children a little bit about the underwater animals, which they don't always see unless they go to aquarium and stuff like that. And so that's how I decided to go ahead and write about those animals. And Ollie, of course, and sometimes goes alone and has adventures and meets friends, and sometimes he goes with the teacher. They go with the teacher into the abyss, for instance, and to see an old rusty ship that went down a long time ago. And instead of having a mermaid in the front, like many ships did, this one had a human figure in front. And, of course, the Ollie and friends don't know what humans are, and they can't understand why there is no tail on that figure. So the teacher has to tell them those are humans, and they have legs, and all of this. I couldn't stand on the earth. They can with those legs. And then she tells him about humans as much as she knows, and says, remember this lesson well, because it probably will come in very handy. Well, of course, my next story is where they meet humans on a ship where the little girl has a birthday party. And actually, you know, the friend that I mentioned, that whose email address inspired me,
yes,
she kept asking me, she loves balloons, she loves red. Could you put those into a story? And said, well, let me see. So the red balloons are all around the ship where the little girl, and that's her, with blonde hair, red dress, red ribbon in her hair, where they celebrate a birthday. And that's their meeting of humans.
That's such a great story. The book is Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by our guest on the program, Renate Schalk Schreiner. Once you get all of this together, you do the rhyming stories, and you do that so well. And you talked about the editing to go back and make sure that they were as crisp as you wanted them to be. What were the challenges in doing this in the rhyming fashion that you use?
Well, somebody asked me, why did I rhyme it? Well, first up, that's the way it came to me when I sat down at the computer to write. And then my mother was a poet in the family. When she sat down to write about her garden, about her flowers, about birthdays, about people, it just flowed. And I think from what I thought and felt, that she's not alive anymore, but she was standing behind me saying, go girl, this is what you should do, go ahead, you can do it, and it flowed. And then I definitely needed some help with someone who's probably more versed in the American English language than maybe I am, to find the rhyming words. And that sometimes wasn't very easy. We had to change things around to make it rhyme better. But I think we did a pretty good job.
I think you did an excellent job, and time is going by so quickly. So much to talk about with this charming children's book, Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends. Is there a moral to the stories? I mentioned you weave in some facts, and you really touch upon some issues that we all need to be aware of. Is there a moral to this book?
Well, first off, I wanted to, bring to the children friendship. Friendships can be found anywhere, and it doesn't. In this case, it was underwater, but it goes for above water too. And I noticed that when I was teaching, children usually don't make a difference of what the friend looks like, what color he or she is, how they dress, how they talk, and sometimes not even the same language. And but they can form strong friendships, and I wanted to bring that point home. But then politeness, because Ollie, in this story, I try to be as polite as possible, curious and sensitive to his surroundings. And then, of course, one of the things that I would like to really was important to me in press is the pollution of the ocean,
yes,
which Ollie and the teacher, of course, noticed, and make a plan to help with that. And that plan is to knot a big net out of sea plants, go along the shore, and collect everything that they can find. And while they are doing that, they get to rescue. Ollie gets to rescue a turtle that has been choking on some plastic, and he takes a piece of coral and cuts until the poor turtle can speak again, and tells them about a net full of fish that they're caught, can't get out, and so they will die. So they rescue them, and so on. And then they collect all that trash and bring it to the shore. And Ollie, who has the ink in his body, gets on land, writes on a big leaf, and a plea to the humans: please do not leave the trash on the beach, because the water constantly moves and brings all that into our home and pollutes it, and with that it kills many animals, and that makes them sad. And they says, would you please consider being more kind to the underwater life, because that is so important to all of us.
Well, that's such an inspiration to children, and I'm going to broaden that out, adults as well. If we read the books before we pass them along to our children, if we read the books to the children, if we read the books or listen as our children are reading them to us, this is a very simple message, a simplified message, a very important one that you deliver graphically, and what we're doing with the oceans and what we can do to stop that. And you've done such a remarkable job of inspiring, educating, and entertaining in the book Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by Renate Schalk Schreiner. I'm going to spell that if you're going to Google that. Renate is Renate, Schalk is Schalk, and Schreiner is Schreiner. I've given you a lot. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you'll be able to link on directly and get information on the book, Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends. And Renate, I know you've worked with Reader's Magnet on this project and getting it refined, getting it out in the public. What has that experience been like for you?
You mean the radio?
No, with Reader's Magnet and working with them and getting the book ready to out there now.
I just started with them. I'm actually working with Author House, but they have approached me, and then the radio came along. It was suggested with Kate Delaney once before, and now with you, Rick, and that was something completely new to me, and it it's a little unnerving to me.
Well, you've handled it very well. It's just I can tell the passion for reaching out to young people and giving them a positive message, which you've done so well, beautifully illustrated by your nephew. It's cousin, I believe. Cousin, is that who did this?
It's a cousin. Yes.
Cousin, yes. Just a wonderful job. And working out the language and just sort of making your text come alive visually. Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends by Renate Schalk Schreiner. The book is available at Author House, at Amazon, the usual places. Renate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us on the program.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, and I really appreciate the fact that you talked to me.
Well, I appreciate the fact that you've done something and a very important message you're taking out to the young people. These are the people that can help us all make a difference and turn around some neglect that's been decades in the making. Undersea Adventures of Ollie and Friends. The book's available, as I mentioned, at Author House, at Amazon, the usual places. Link on to our website, This Week in America, for more information. And we're back on today's program after these messages.
You're listening to This Week in America with Rick Bratton. More after this.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.